Hi guys, happy Saturday and welcome to this week's The Weekend Honey-Do. This week's episode is about one of my favorite topics, designing for tykes or little ones. As many of you guys know, I have a 2.5, almost 3-year-old, and my home is essentially her playground. Upstairs, downstairs, in basically every corner of this home, she has almost free reign. But I didn't want to give away this traditional, somewhat sophisticated, but very refined style and aesthetic that I was developing in my home. And me and her father actually had many conversations about how to seamlessly integrate her stuff into our space without it overtaking our space, but then also being a good representation of the family that lives there. So I'm going to go over my top 3 things and what you need to do to make sure that you are designing around tykes, but the tykes aren't running the show. So if you're an Artbox subscriber, or if you follow us on Instagram, you probably know that my first go-to thing in any space is art. So it's no different that was where I would begin with really kind of representing your tyke in your space. So if you look behind me, this is a painting that was done by my daughter. She was, she was 1 year old. It was her very first summer. And I essentially bought a huge canvas. I bought some really cheap acrylic paints and I just let her go to town. So every day we would go out on the deck and she would finger paint. Sometimes it was a lot, sometimes a little. Sometimes she would choose to, rub them all together. Sometimes she wouldn't. But it was really just her creative outlet. And in a kind of exchange, I got something that I value so, so dearly. So it might look really hodgepodge and crappy to you, but for me, it's just a reminder of her creativity, and she just gets a kick out of seeing this in her front entry. So everybody that comes through, she can tell them that is 7. She hasn't quite figured out the difference between herself and her art, but that is 7, and I am so proud of it. So when you're thinking about including art into your space, think about what is kid-friendly. So it doesn't have to necessarily be subject that is centered around children, but if the colors are vibrant, or even if they're more muted, but they're in a whimsical way, your kids will enjoy the art just as much as you do. One trick that I love doing is putting it at eye level. So I have some shelving, and even in my cabinet, I always like to put art where she can appreciate it as well. So you're both building this appreciation for art, you're both experiencing it in the space, and then they don't feel left out. So that is my first suggestion when thinking about what it means to design with tykes in mind. The next one is color. So color is very unique and specific to your home. So if your home isn't full of primary and bold colors, there's no reason that your kid spaces have to be such. You can find very neutral, kid-friendly things that are more cohesive with the overall space. And then I always say keep things grounded. So not everything has to be one note. You can also bring in those wood tones, those warm things, those metals and brasses, and kind of makes this jungle gym look a little bit more sophisticated. So just make sure, like I said, that you're following the same rules that you follow everywhere else in your home, and don't overwhelm the space thinking that it has to be like that just because it's for kids. The last one is thrifting. So I usually thrift everything that 7 has access to. So I have a beautiful china cabinet, and while the china cabinet is pretty one of a kind, I would hate for something to happen to it, everything that's in there, while it's beautiful and nice, I didn't spend a whole bunch of money on it. So she's able to explore, she's able to really kind of feel around and discover beautiful pieces. And I don't feel like I need to blow a gasket if something happens to break. So I hope you enjoy this episode of the Weekend Honey-Do. So you have a great weekend and we'll see you next week. Bye.